The judge said she showed no remorse, and so he sentenced her to 24 years. And I wondered why he thought she might have shown any remorse. To have only perhaps 2 years knocked off her sentence? Why would he expect her to show remorse? After all, she hated her brother-in-law. Why would she be remorseful when she had purposely arranged for him to be turned into blood and dust? When someone has done a bad act, the door can be closed to the healing word. No place for healing, no time for healing. Last week, London and several English cities broke into chaotic behaviour in several parts. Many, including the Prime Minister of England, said these people should be severely punished. And I wondered what Archbishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa might have said. I think he might have said, somewhere here there's need for a healing word. In a few weeks' time we'll be celebrating St. Michael's Day. The legend of St. Michael's says people had gone far off course, far away from their best humanity. And they needed someone, Michael in fact, to bring them back on course. A time of healing was needed. But you know, if your mind is flooded with hate and you feel so justified in your hating, the word you don't want to hear, the word you need to hear, is a word of healing. If your heart is tight with the pain of sadness and sorrow, though that pain may seem to be the only feeling right for the circumstance, nevertheless, the word that you don't want to hear, the word that you need to hear, is a word of healing. If your body is aching and exhausted and there is no relief in sight, not even transitory relief, the word you want to hear, the word you often refuse to hear, is that word of healing. In the emptiness of the illness, is there a word of healing? Maybe a different word of healing, a quiet word of healing, a consoling word of healing, an enhancing word of healing. You know that we can lose faith. We lose faith in words. We lose faith in faith, if you like. We demand action. We get absorbed in our tasks, our duties, the necessary things needing to be done, or that we think we should be doing, and all too quickly we've moved away from any thought of healing. The words of healing, so basic to our best humanity, can so easily become words of hurry, or even words of hostility, or words of hurtfulness. The words of inclusion can become words of irritation and intolerance and injury. Of course, it is going too far to compare the turbulence in Britain with that in Syria or Greece. They're all different. And yet those young girls in England said it so clearly. You can't tell us what to do. We'll do what we like. And at one end of that out-of-control seesaw, we have authorities saying, as in Syria, we will come down heavily on you to show that there will be no tolerance for that kind of behaviour. And on the other end of the seesaw, hardly audible at these times, we need a time of healing, whatever that might mean. But we quickly lose faith in words, only to realise We've lost faith in the soft healing words, and we give ourselves over to the faith in the threats and heavy hostile words. So wherever you sit on the political spectrum, whatever your position in your job or your status or your role, wherever you are in some quarrel in your relationships, whatever your personal status of anger or anxiety, of stress or sorrow, of guilt or holding grudges, everyone sooner or later will be looking for a healing word. And when it comes, it can be like a new faith being born. So your phone rings, and at the other end is the doctor, and in a very controlled voice, she says the tests are back, and the tests are all good. And you breathe the breath of gratitude and relief. It was a healing word, lifting you out of your anxiety and fear. A healing breath comes over you. Although you might say we were braced for the bad news, when the good news comes, we feel a whisper of immortality. We feel a resurrection in our brain and in our body. It's like a new faith being born. That's a healing word. What is this healing word? Dr. Roger Lewin, or some might call him Levine, wrote in this book on compassion. He says it's a neglected virtue. He wrote, we talk so much about growth, possessions, efficiency, excellence, innovation. The words all roll off our tongues with a numbing familiarity. It is not only the stocks of birds and fish and forests, the resources of the earth and sky that are becoming depleted, he says. Human relationships are also becoming dangerously depleted. So the new faith which we advocate here calls us to recover a faith in ourselves, in the ways of compassion towards ourselves and towards others. He says this is at once the most ancient of frontiers and the one that needs to be perpetually rediscovered. Compassion. Compassion for ourselves, because so often we have to heal ourselves. We need a soothing word for our own discontent, for our own mind states, for our own fears. A healing, soothing word for ourselves. Where would we all be, those of us in the helping professions, if we didn't, first of all, think carefully about our own healing? And I'm sure you're going to hear more about that later on today. The healing word. The healing word, you need to hear it. You need to learn it. And you need to speak it. I often say to my patients in my other place, it is one thing to go there, you must also experience it, but also speak it. The three-story approach. Be there, feel it, speak it. And as you speak it and practice it, you'll find it changes your personality and your attitude to life. One program in the United States, actually it was done in the United States and New York and Pittsburgh. It trained older people, older volunteers, to become helping and healing people for young people in some of the schools. And the program showed this. 65% of the helpers reported improved life satisfaction because of what they'd done, as a result of what they'd done. 76% felt a stronger sense of well-being. And 32% said they felt there was an improvement to their emotional and mental health. So the question was asked, how has this volunteer experience affected you? And many of the answers expressed a single theme, put succinctly by one woman in the study. She said, "It is an experience I will keep with me as long as I live. It has enriched my whole life." So you see, the healing word, practiced and spoken, changed her, changed them. Come to the third issue. In one book I've been reading recently, it said, happiness is a work in progress. And I thought, so is healing. Healing is a work in progress. Some of you will remember a couple of weeks ago, I spoke of my experience at Melbourne Airport. I've been interested to find I've received letters from some people in Canada. They watched that address on YouTube or wherever, and were equally affected by it in an amused kind of way. Well, this week I wanted to refer to another person's visit to another airport. Eric Viner, an American, visited London, Heathrow, and when he arrived there, of course, he had to hand in his passport to the man behind the desk. And the man behind the desk said, "What is your purpose for visiting the UK?" And Eric Viner said, "I'm doing research for a book." "And what exactly is this book about?" He said, "Happiness." Now, up until this point, Eric Viner said, the officer had been staring down at the passport. But when he heard that, he looked up, almost aggressively, and said, "Happiness?" "Yes, sir, happiness." "In the UK?" And he said it was as if the officer was ready to say, "We don't do happiness here." So the author called the chapter, "Happiness is a work in progress." And then we put it aside. But healing is a work in progress. And sometimes we put it aside and we forget what a difference it makes. A work in progress. Keep it so. Number 4, the fourth issue I'd like to say is this. The healing word happens even when we're silent. Sometimes, especially when we're silent. We're all good at words, aren't we? We're all good at words. That's my job in one sense, but I also know the importance of the silence. And in this book, Tell Me the Truth, you'll find example again and again, where words were there, very important, but so was the silence. Just her presence was so powerful, being there, being the person. Here was a busy specialist doing her hospital calls. And as we mentioned just now, the nurse told her not to go into that particular ward because the patient was close to death. But she went in. After a lot of debating within herself, she thought, yes, she would go in. And you heard what happened. It was a marvelous moment, a transforming moment not for the patient who was dying, perhaps, we're unable to say, but for the people gathered round her bedside. There, her presence, not her words, but just being there, sitting with them. Each new situation provides us with the possibility of being present and letting quietness speak the healing word. My research assistant, John Abate, said the other day about his artwork. He said, art is a new way, the new forms of art is a new way of saying what art can be. Well, the new faith is spoken in a new language. It's doing faith in a different way. So I put to you these 5 issues. Number 1, we're all carriers of healing as we practice the works of compassion. to ourselves and to others. Number 2, when you hear and receive and give a healing word, it's like a new faith being born. Number 3, as you practice the healing word, as you speak the healing word, it changes you. Changes the way you live. So long as you go to the 4th point. And the 4th point is the healing word is meant to be always a work in progress. And 5th, the healing word often happens in silence, by and through a good presence. So let me turn for just a moment to the reading from the gospel we took today. Jesus taking the hand of the little girl and helping her stand up. Now, many people within religious circles talk about that story as a miracle, the miracle of Jesus, without realizing that every act of healing, if only we pause for a moment, every act of healing is cause for awe and astonishment. What a good presence can do. And then remember, Jesus reminded them, gathered there, he reminded them to be a good presence. Giving them something to eat, being a good presence. So first we get the presence, then the healing word, then the nurturing action, and then all becoming part of the good presence. And a new faith. A new faith was being born. In the presence of the healing word, in the nurturing action, there it was. D.H. Lawrence in his poem said, "Shall I tell you again the new word? The word of the unborn day. It is resurrection." In every healing word, we're open to a new faith, to a new word. And that word, it is resurrection. Would you stand?